I think that sometimes people could say, oh, Rob, when you were up there talking, you were taking these words apart. And I mean, you were taking so many liberties. You were going so deep on these words, which on the surface seem very, who you're looking for, right? But I think we have to also realize that, especially in John's gospel, nothing is there by accident, right? Like all of these words, every sentence, every word is there for us to unpack and go deeper. So I think that's exactly what Jesus's invitation is to us.
Well, thank you for joining me. We're going to talk a little bit about the sermon today, and we're going to be joined with Rob in just a few minutes, which is going to be really nice.
Yeah.
How did you find the sermon series that we had leading up to Easter, which was all about Jesus's last words on the cross?
The sermon series was really good, as usual. It was really nice to have the words that Jesus spoke while he was going through stuff. And it was just a source of encouragement to us.
It was. And it was a great lead-in to what we have today, too, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Well, now we've got Rob joining us. So thank you, Rob. It's a busy morning for you, I assume.
It is. But I mean, there's so much energy in the room that it just kind of, keeps you going. And it's very exciting. It's so nice to see such a full house. Got another service coming up.
Yep.
Wonderful music, great prayers, great worship. Yeah. So very, very exciting.
It was. Well, I just want to see how sharp you guys really are this morning, first of all. All right. So you might notice there's an Easter basket between your chairs. You probably didn't because you just walked in.
Yeah.
But there's an Easter basket. And yesterday we had the amazing community Easter egg hunt.
Yes.
So I was here. I had the privilege of being here for that. And I tested this out. And I want to see if you can make a really good estimate. There's an empty Easter basket. And how many Easter eggs can fit in that empty Easter basket? Just make your best
Like the
guess.
little chocolate ones?
No, I'm talking about like a standard. Actually, Erikan and I were talking about this before. She asked about the question as well. Like a classic chicken egg style.
Oh.
Like egg shape. So, we do have a conversation coming up. So
I think that's going to be 4 dozen. I'm going to say 48 eggs.
48 eggs. Okay.
Probably 33.
Well, actually, the answer is 1 because after you put 1 egg in it, it's not empty anymore.
Oh, gosh.
You got us.
Gosh.
Gotcha. Well, happy Easter. And we came to today, actually, we journeyed through Lent, right? So that's the season that we prepare for Easter. And that began way back on Ash Wednesday, which fell on Valentine's Day this year. And you reminded us, Rob, actually, this is the message that you reminded us that everything on earth is going to die, right? I mean, even these flowers here are going to die and pass away. But when we were talking about that, you reminded us that the one thing that will survive and will live forever is the Word of God.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we continued through Lent and we actually looked at the words of God, those 7 final words that Jesus had on the cross. And they were like these awesome words of promise and forgiveness and connection, humanity. And then, wow, today we get to experience that Jesus's final words were actually not his final words.
Yeah, that's right.
He gets to have brand new, fresh resurrection power words. And I was hoping that in the few minutes that we have today, both of you could share with me a little bit more about the impact of those words and the significance of those words. And in the sermon, Rob, you really broke it down into 4 different types of words. And what were they again?
So I said when Jesus rose from the dead, the first word that he spoke was this amazing word of caring and compassion.
Yeah.
And then following that, he uttered this word of, I call it kind of a word of searching. It's a word that he speaks to people who are searching, I guess you said. Then he has this word of knowing where he names Mary Magdalene and says, Mary. And then the last one, of course, is when he issues this word of sending, saying, now go and tell my brothers and go and go and tell. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So out of those first 4 words, he has the first words, which you mentioned were words of caring.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering why you think Jesus chose words of caring. So our Lord Jesus, his first words were caring, not hello, here I am. Could have been anything really.
Yeah.
But he opts for words of caring.
Yeah, Erikan, why don't you go first? Because Erikan is the head of Trinity's care ministry here.
Right.
She's our care coordinator. So I'd be really curious to hear from Erikan what it sounds like when you hear Jesus saying, "Hey, why are you crying?" to someone after just rising from the dead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rob and Elizabeth. Yeah, I think Jesus always identifies with our pain, and he's concerned when we're in pain. Actually, scripture says that, he identifies with us. He wants us to stop crying, more or less, whatever is causing the tears. And so even here at Trinity, we do have a great caring ministry because we want to follow in the footsteps of Jesus. And so to try and live out the Jesus life, we have a ministry that provides care, different types of care for people in grief, in need, needing prayers. It's a very robust ministry that we have here at Trinity.
It's interesting when you said that that Jesus associates with our pain and our suffering. It's interesting because normally when we think of Jesus and his connection with human suffering, we're thinking of Good Friday. We're thinking of the last words. He's hanging on the cross. That's where the connection is happening. And yet, now on the other side of the grave, when he's risen from the dead, he is still connecting with our pain, our suffering, which is actually quite fascinating. It's actually just who Jesus is. It's not part of his ministry, the part that happened on the cross. It's part of his resurrection ministry as well. Like it's just
his character.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Actually, that's fantastic. So we had words of caring.
Yep.
The next words were words of searching. So he says, remind me what Jesus says again in his searching.
He says to Mary, "Whom are you looking for? Who are you looking for?" He says that right after.
And you said in your sermon that he knows who Mary is looking for. He must know. He's Jesus after all. So why these words?
Yeah, Erikan and I, we chatted. Well, actually, the three of us, we chatted about this a little earlier. But what do you take from that?
Well, I think we're always looking for something as Christians. Even when we come to Trinity, we come because we're looking for somebody or something. Yeah, and so I think the question goes way beyond what Jesus said to Mary, even applying to us today. Whom are we looking for? Whom are we looking for when we come to follow Jesus at Trinity? I think it's just something that we have to reflect on and ask ourselves. He's reminding us to reorganize our thoughts and be very specific and directed when we come to Jesus and say, whom are we looking for?
Yeah, I think that sometimes, people could say, "Oh, Rob, when you were up there talking, you were taking these words apart." And you were taking so many liberties. You were going so deep on these words, which on the surface seem very, who you're looking for, right? But I think we have to also realize that, especially in John's gospel, nothing is there by accident, right? Like all of these words, every sentence, every word is there for us to unpack and go deeper. So I think that's exactly what Jesus's invitation is to us, especially on Easter Sunday, is to unpack that longing that we have, that's the searching that we have within us, to actually really do some introspection, do some soul searching. And a lot of people, I think maybe they don't want to do that work, or they think they already know the answer to what they're looking for. It's a what, right? I need more this, more that, more house, more salary, more friends, more family, more vacation, whatever. And we think if we just got our hands on that, then that itch, that emptiness would go away. But Jesus is saying, no, look deeper. Take some time. It's not even a what you're looking for. It's a who. Whom are you looking for?
That reminds me of the sermon series we had about half a year ago, where we were talking about what makes you happy. And the very first thing that you mentioned, or that we learned as a church, was that scientifically proven what makes people happy and fulfilled was not a what, but it was a who. It was a relationship. So Jesus explains that right there in that statement, which is really neat.
And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that, again, I think Alpha, which is coming up, is the perfect forum for people who are searching, people who are longing for something and they can't even put their finger on it, or they have questions. Mary Magdalene, I think, could have taken Alpha. I think anyone who's watching or anyone who's in church, we're really inviting everybody. April 10th at Trinity. We're beginning Alpha. It's a place where you can ask those questions. We provide a nice meal for the evening. There's childcare. It's all there. You can go to trinitystreetsville.org/alpha and you can register and join us and at least give it a try. But it's the perfect place to ask those big questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. That's exciting. That's coming up.
It is.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It is.
All right. But Jesus then, I'm going to take us back to that garden where he's with Mary. And he then states some words that you mentioned were words of searching. Nope. Knowing.
Yes.
I'm moving into the knowing now.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, knowing, or you might even say recognizing. Again, you know, it's funny, on a Sunday like today, you look out of the crowd and there's lots of people I don't know.
Yeah.
And a lot of people I don't recognize, and I can only assume everybody's feeling that way. So I don't know. Again, Erikan, you take it. What is it about Jesus naming Mary that is so powerful on Easter Sunday?
Oh my God. It is so comforting again and encouraging because we all want to be known by name. We like it when people walk up to us and recognize us and call us by name. That means we're not just one in many. We're special. We're unique. And so I think in that calling Mary, Mary, Jesus is saying a number of things. I know you, Mary. I see you. I know everything about you. And it's very, in that one word, there's a lot of wholesomeness. There's a lot of comforting and acknowledgement of who he is, or who Mary is, which is really what we do here at Trinity. Yeah. So again, it's all a part of Jesus comforting Mary.
Yeah. When you're fairly new to Trinity,
Yes.
I should say, but you're newer than I am. But did you find it hard to actually get to know people, or to feel like people knew you when you joined a community like this?
Well, yeah, it always is a bit challenging, but Trinity was very unique. I have found Trinity to be very, very warm, very hospitable. I have written about it. I've talked about it. They go out of their way to know people. And it's even right from when we come into church. We have name tags, so we can call each other by name. We're not just saying, hey, hi. So that's unique. It's great.
Yeah, and just as we're talking, you guys can't see this, but there's a coffee hour going on out here. There's this hubbub, this din of people chitting and chatting, and this is so important to what we do on a Sunday, because this is how we actually go from being faces in the crowd to actually, hey, I'm Rob. Oh, your name's Elizabeth, right? You actually start to know that name. You move past strangers. You become friends, and you start the journey of getting to know people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And actually, even for our online people, we have a check-in process now.
Yes.
And so many of you, if you're watching online, have been using that. And I love it because I know you by name.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts during the pre-show is when Elizabeth looks at her laptop or whatever, and she says, I see that, Alexander is out there, and Bruce, and there's Allison, and it's good to have you. It's so true, Elizabeth, that we want people to be known, even if they can't be here in person, which is hard, but we're really trying, and we're really working at that. And I think you're doing a great job of getting us there.
Thank you. Yeah. And I mean, Jesus says that, and scripturally, I think back to the Old Testament in Isaiah, it's fear not, I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine.
So true.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
So the
true.
importance of the name.
Yeah.
And then he chooses Mary. So you were mentioning there was a couple people at the grave there, but Jesus waits until there's one.
Yeah.
And why Mary, I wonder? Not that you necessarily have the answer, but what are your thoughts on that?
No, that was actually something you said a couple days ago.
And
so
I'm
I'd like
still
to know
waiting for an
your thoughts
answer.
on it. Yeah. But it was when we were chatting about this ahead of time, it was you who said, like, why didn't he do it when the three were there? Why did he wait till just Mary was there? And I think that's actually a really good question. Have you thought more about it?
I've thought about it, and I certainly don't think I necessarily have all the answers, but I can see some parallels between two gardens. The beginning garden with Eve, and I can see the beginning garden there with Mary.
Yes.
So as a new start.
Yes.
I also see Mary as someone who stayed close to Jesus and just lived such a humble, real life as a follower who was a sinner, who was turned around. And I just think it speaks to how Jesus cares really so much about every single person, and about the redeeming quality that Jesus has that can have in anybody's life.
I mentioned this in my sermon, but actually being known by somebody, or really letting yourself be known by someone, is can be risky. Because what if you get rejected? What if they find out who you are and they're like, I don't want to be with that person? And actually, Mary, now that I sit here and think about Mary Magdalene, was one of those people, if I remember the biblical story, I think she was said to have been possessed by demons or something like that. Like she obviously was the kind of person that maybe others did not want to get to know very much at all and would have avoided. Or maybe she would have even tried to hide that part of herself from Jesus or from others. But it's perhaps because she was vulnerable and she was able to let herself be fully known that she could be fully healed. And in that way, maybe she's the perfect person for Jesus to call by name on Resurrection Day, because here is a model for us to let everything be known. Give all that we are, the good, the bad, the ugly, right? To really, because Jesus knows us, just to let our guard down and be known and be loved by him.
Yeah, that's so true.
And last but not least, at least as far as we know from the Gospels, when he's speaking with Mary, he gives her these words of sending. He doesn't just leave it there. He gives her some words of sending. Go and tell. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if you think it's true, but I said, this is the part that everybody hates when the preacher says, now go and tell others. Now go and tell others. Am I right about that? Like, is that intimidating for people?
Yes and no. A lot of times, yes. But that's only to the extent that you're trying to do it by yourself. But when there is a recognition that it's kind of each time you send your child or somebody close to you on an errand, you empower them to do what you want them to do. And so when there's the acknowledgement that there is an empowerment, if Jesus is saying go, then he's empowering us to go. So when we look at it that way, it's not that intimidating.
That's right. He definitely felt like she could do it.
Yes.
Right. Which is kind of shocking because she was a woman in a culture in a time when, like of all people, why her? But he believed she could do it, and she did do it. Yes. And what I was trying to say, and maybe I didn't say really well at the end, was that yes, we think going and telling means what Mary said, which is, I have seen the Lord. He is risen, right? And that, of course, when you walk into a conversation with someone and just say that, it's like kind of tone deaf. People aren't ready to hear that. But that's why I really latched on to where it says, and then she told them the things Jesus had said to her. And we just talked about the things that Jesus had said to her. And what had Jesus said to her? He had said, hey, why are you crying? This emotional connecting thing. He says, what are you looking for? Right? This searching word and this, this word of identification and knowing like, hey, who are you? What's your name? So I feel like, although we feel like going and telling has to be this big and bold thing, like, he is risen, Jesus is risen. It actually can be as simple as starting by just saying, hey, what's going on? Looks like you're sad. How can I help you? Or, hey, it looks like you're searching for something, or let's talk more about that. Or, hey, what's your name? Right? Like it can start with just that.
That's true.
And then it's in the context of a relationship that Jesus, the risen Jesus, kind of speaks through us and gets through. So it's not as scary as we might think or as we might make it.
Yeah, that's so true.
Thank you.
I agree.
Absolutely. And so I guess, how do we take those words now on Easter Sunday, on this Resurrection Sunday, really? How do we take those into our lives? Are we to go to our coworkers? Are we supposed to, do you think this is empowering us to talk to those family members around the dinner table tonight and just begin with those types of words?
What do you think, Erikan?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like Rob just said, it isn't a very scary thing to do. It's just in the basic things, in the mundane, in the everyday conversations that, and also in who we are. Yeah. Just trying to just be human with another person, just the way Jesus was. So yeah, I think it's just a mandate to go to everybody and anybody.
Yeah. I think for real sharing of the good news to happen, 99 times out of 100, it happens in the context of a relationship. So if you already have a relationship with someone, like a friend or family member or whatever, then I think you've maybe earned a certain amount of trust to be able to say something and be heard. But again, it's a different thing when you're going to a stranger. You maybe need to begin with building that relationship and building that that trust in order to maybe earn a hearing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I'm hoping people go out of here realizing that if this message was shared with us, then it's one to be shared with others. And just like Mary Magdalene could do it, despite every stroke that was against her and how she was like, again, her culture and context, she did it. We're here today because she did it, because she told others. If she had failed to do that, the message would have been truncated, I guess, at that point. Yeah. But she did it, and we can do it too.
Absolutely. So what I can take away from this is that Jesus cares for us. He loves us. He knows what we need. He knows what we want and need, and he knows us by name, and that we are called on a mission.
And that is something that we should be sharing. What you just said was a beautiful summary.
Good news.
That is good news.
Yeah.
And that is the good news.
Yes.
So thank you very much. We have another service to get to, guys.
Wow. Yeah.
So out there in the coffee hour, I can hear the people from our 9:15 service, and I can also hear people from our 11:15 service trickling in as well. So again, thank you and happy Easter to both of you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Happy Easter to everybody who's joined us online. Happy Easter, Erikan.
Happy Easter, Rob.
High five. All right.
Happy Easter, Elizabeth.
All right. See you soon.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everyone.